The legendary horror director Tobe Hooper is responsible for some of the best and most iconic and influential horror films in cinema. It all started back in the 70s when he thought horror films just weren't scary anymore. I assume he hadn't seen The Exorcist. Tobe Hooper, along with a bunch of no-name actors and inexperienced film crews straight out of film school and what little budget he had, put together one of the most shockingly violent and visceral horror films ever made. I'm Purple Boy, you guys are tuning in to Purple Film, and welcome to my Halloween special. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of the purest slashers I have ever seen. It is, after all, the godfather of the genre. And it amazes me how unpredictable this movie really was. I mean, it has so many surprises in store for me. I love this genre and the slasher genre, and I thought, I had everything figured out. But when I sat down and watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I realized that this movie has what so many other horror films, what so many other slashers don't have, right? And it's that sense of mystery, right? Tobe Hooper does an amazing job of giving the audience very little information, just enough to give the audience what they need to kind of get an idea for what's going on, to set the mood, to build tension. But there's very little information, right? Very little exposition. He really does cut the excess. And when you do that, you really involve the audience. You engage the audience imagination. And those are the type of film experiences that I truly adore. And I can honestly say that I love this movie. If I were to watch Texas Chainsaw several years ago, and you were to ask me what did I think of it today, I probably would have said something like, oh yeah, it's a visceral, violent movie with a bunch of blood and gore. That's actually what I was expecting when I popped in a Blu-ray, but to my surprise, there aren't copious amounts of blood and gore in this movie. But that didn't stop people from running out of the theater and throwing up, and for the UK for banning this film for 25 years. I mean, who needs blood, right? When you have that amazing, unsettling, and eerie score that just, it made your boy feel queasy throughout the entire film. And what about the women screaming in this movie? Holy shit. God damn, women got lungs. These women in this film got some lungs on them, boy, let me tell you. But what really got me was that loud, overbearing, ominous sound of that fucking chainsaw. That elongated chase sequence had me on the edge with my heart racing. It was so intense, and it went on for what seems like forever, and thanks to the convincing acting by Marilyn Burns, that scene is one of the most terrifying moments in horror cinema. It wasn't until later in the 70s, and definitely in the 80s, that slashers really upped the ante in blood and gore, and of course studios were more than happy to approve whatever depraved idea the next director could think of. In this film, there were only suggestions of a man's head getting cut off, or a woman being thrown on a meat hook. There wasn't even a mention of cannibalism, and yet you knew them crazy ass mofos were eating people. One can argue that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was a relevant film for the times. The late 60s and 70s saw a substantial increase in crime. America seemed to be becoming more violent. What perfect film to reflect that violence and depravity than the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Political unrest was ultimately what drove Tobe to write this film. The radio voice heard throughout the film's opening is giving news about grisly murders and horrific events, painting the world as a very unsafe place. Tobe had a feeling that maybe he and his peers weren't as safe as they were once led to believe, and this theme of false security was explored through Leatherface's victims. These unfortunate teens were literally walking into their own demise, ignoring clear warning signs, ignorant to the world around them, unaware of how dangerous and deranged people can be. Tobe compares their lack of awareness to cows heading for the slaughter. This stark comparison is probably the most disturbing thing about this film. As the characters pass a meatpacking plant, one of them goes into this explanation of the inhumane ways cattle were slaughtered, mirroring those mental images of cows being slaughtered to the actual images of humans being murdered in a frighteningly similar way evokes a gross feeling, a feeling that I'm sure turned many folks into vegans the day this was released. So there was one brother in the entirety of this film, and he's the gentleman who drives the truck at the end of the movie, and he becomes the unintentional hero of the final girl. And what's really interesting about his character is that not only was he the only one who attacked Leatherface by chucking a wrench into his face, but he did not stick around to get murdered, right? You know how some characters or some people just kind of, some innocent bystander just get in the way and just gets fucking murdered? Not this guy. He got the fuck out of Dodge. I have no idea what this guy was doing when he was driving that truck, but he completely bulldozes over one of the brothers. And so he jumps out the truck, sees this big ass white boy waving a chainsaw around, and he just starts booking it. I mean, the one chick, I mean, she was just there, right? Because he jumps in the truck, he jumps out the other end, and he just takes off running, leaving leaving this girl behind. Thankfully, she was saved by somebody else. But like, that's just the thing, man. Black people, we are going to survive the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because look, we ain't finna pick up no hitchhikers, right? We ain't finna try to fuck in no abandoned home, you know what I'm saying? And we sure as hell ain't about to walk up in nobody's house, okay? That's just something we are not about to do. The false sense of security that Toby explores in this movie is something that was not afforded to Black people in this country, right? We saw the country for what it was. We saw the ugliness, we saw the evil, we saw the violence. You know, our great grandfathers and stuff, you know, experienced it, right? So built into us already is that, you know what I'm saying, that survival mode, okay? Right? We embrace the world with caution. I mean, there was no other option. We had to, you know what I'm saying? And I just find that really interesting. And I'm not saying that that was, you know, Tobe Hooper's intentions, but as a Black man, you know, when I watch this film, I just think it's undeniable. And that's just one more reason why I really like this movie now, man. And I cannot freaking wait to watch this joint again. The slasher genre is my favorite horror subgenre. Go in the comments and let your boy know what is your favorite slasher from the 1970s. Go ahead and click that video you see on the screen right now and check out more reviews. Drop a like and subscribe. And the next film you watch, man, I hope it encourages, inspires, and entertains. Thanks for watching.